You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchistan Center, this is Phoenix FM.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
According to the Nerd Index, you should be upside down in a junior high toilet around the clock.
This is Time goes in, time goes out. Never miscommunication.
It's over 9,000! My name is Foxy.
The balls are in there. Do a barrel roll. Don't face me, bro. It's a trap. I'm a firing believer. Time to Hey, Charlie, wake up. Oh, God, oh, man.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Nerd to Know Basis Show, broadcasting from Phoenix 92.5 FM, or indeed on Spotify if you didn't catch it live, as it were. My name is Kieran Calcon, and in roughly alphabetical order, please introduce yourselves, guys.
Do the alphabet in my head to see if K comes before S, and it does.
You're last, don't worry.
Okay.
It does. It also helps that you're the special guest.
Yes, we're going to get to a special
You
guest.
heard nothing. I am still
Well, we also have
battling.
But we also have
special
mediocre
regulars.
guests.
Alan,
Mediocre
would you like
guests.
to introduce yourself there?
And I am Kev.
There you go. Now, we do have a special guest today. You heard her wonderful voice briefly. We have Saoire Sine with us, actor, comedian, script writer, podcaster, all these wonderful things. I'm sure I've missed something, whom you can find at her theatre company, Scream for Ireland, or on her podcast, Absurd Real History. If I've gotten anything wrong, please correct me. Saoire, thank you so much for being on the show.
No, thank you. I'm excited. Just love to nerd out for a bit.
Yeah, well, you're in the right company then. So before we get into it, it's always nice to have a bit of a chat. So, Saoire, is everything going all right this week in the world?
In the world, I mean, no, but but in regards to myself, yeah. So I finished Persona 5 Royale, which is a huge juggernaut of a game, and one of those big ones that has a lot of fanboys to it. But I really enjoyed it, and it consumed my life.
Hello, yes, yes. You're talking to one now. Hello, hi.
Yeah. I don't want to give anything away, but I just because I think it is a great game that people should play. But I loved that it was like an RPG, but it was set in like real world Tokyo, which is kind of like a fictional land for me. Just just because I don't know like Asia at all, really. I think Japan in particular is so fascinating because they have that period of just whatever. And I've heard Persona 5. I haven't played any of the other ones, but I've heard Persona get a lot of stick for being like real sexist and all. But it's also like Japan's just such a crazy culture. Like me and Kian have a mutual friend who was in Japan, and he was saying people are just openly reading insane anime porn like on the train. So
I know you're talking about.
Yeah. So although it's like, obviously it's sexualizing teens, and which is weird, and there are some pretty risque moments. In general, it has dealt with like, abuse, and particularly like towards women, better than any other video game I've played. So I feel like I can't really comment on the sexism of a game when it's from a culture that we don't understand.
I believe, Kev, actually, because I ran the Game Corner for a while, and you did talk about Persona 5. You were on the Game Corner too, actually, Saoire.
That was in...
So I know Persona 5 is very close to Kev's heart. If you don't know this about Kev, he is an expert in all things Japan and all that kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear from him, actually, since that topic's been brought up.
Hey, you're saying expert, not me.
You ran a podcast on it.
We all did crazy things when we were quarantined. But no, Persona, like, I have a very, very special place in Persona, which I mentioned on your podcast. The Royal version came out when the pandemic like hit, and I was off work for 3 months, and just was that was like 3 months where I was in my room, and there was something about the day-to-day routine of Persona that just like kept me sane. Like yeah. But yeah, no, like to mention on the kind of thing of it resembling Tokyo. Actually, funny little anecdote that I can't remember if I said to Gian on the Game Corner.
Good anecdote, it's worth saying twice.
Absolutely. Where, if you recall, Saoire, there's like, you're kind of like going through a various different kind of areas of Tokyo in the game that are pretty well represented. Like they're pretty good facsimiles of the actual areas.
Yeah.
Particularly Shibuya Station.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just dip in really quick? One of the first things you have to do in the game is navigate a train transfer. Like have to walk and like navigate. And I have no sense of direction. And I was at that stage where I was like, this game is impossible. But it was actually much easier than I thought it would be. But yeah, that's just
that's precisely the point I was going to touch on. Yeah. Because the thing is, I've been to Tokyo twice, luckily enough.
Jealous.
Starting that game, I got lost in that exact same train transfer in the game. I got lost in that exact same train transfer in Tokyo. Something about just that connecting service. Like you just miss a corridor, or the fact that it's like up a set of stairs. I was just wandering around that square for 10 minutes with a couple people being like, what are we doing? What is happening?
So Kev, you can try talking to NPCs in the real world then.
God, no. Funnily enough, people there are actually incredibly helpful, even though they do not know a lick of English. We had to get a bus to like a hot spring up the mountains outside of Tokyo. We got a train.
You had to. You just had to get a bus to the hot springs.
Of course.
Absolutely had to.
Hey, you find a place that does a wine hot spring, you gotta go.
I mean, the man speaks sense.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was trains are actually really easy to navigate after what I said. Buses are nigh on impossible. So we got off the train to get this at this bus terminal. And me and the partner, very white, very much like not
wasn't ready for that.
Quite obviously just oblivious to any sense of direction or the Japanese language. This little old lady just comes up to us, not a lick of English on her, and just earnestly tries to help us find our way, and does through use of Google Translate. She eventually we finally got to communicate to her. I was like, yeah, we're actually looking to get to Unison. And she's like, oh, Unison, yeah. And walked us under a tunnel around to the bus stop. And she's like, I basically got mimed out 6 stops. And we were like, oh my God, you are a fairy. Please, we love you.
Yeah, every person I've met from Japan has been absolutely amazing. I'd love to go there. And I think particularly because there was I know a lot of stuff, but I can't remember names. I know a lot of stuff in the abstract, but there was that period where Japan was locked off for hundreds of years when the West was off, colonizing. Yeah. So they were just kind of stuck. So it meant you got a really interesting culture, which we experienced a lot in video games. Obviously, Nintendo is Japanese. All this stuff is Japanese. So for me, it was just really interesting to experience a Japanese game, but actually set in their world. And it was kind of just little things like a lot of the NPCs occasionally are just wearing face masks because that's just what you do in Tokyo when you're sick. You wear, if you have a cold, you just wear a mask because they're nice.
Yeah, no, that's something I hardly noticed when I was there. And then 2020 hit and just suddenly are like, oh, this is something that they did for a reason. Okay.
Yeah.
So you go, Saoire, go on.
I was just going to say, I actually really enjoyed it because I was like, oh, I'm learning. So you go to school every single day. And I was like, oh, in Japan, they go to school on Saturdays. They only have one day off for the weekend. And,
it's little things like how they track their school year is tracked by the financial year starting in March. It's really funny because Japan, when a lot of people kind of think of Japan as a stereotype, you think of them as this very high technologically advanced society with all their big LED screens and Sony, and I'm plugging keywords here, but like when you actually gotta get into it, they like, because they had that economic boom in like the late 70s, early 80s, that's kind of where technology for them peaked. And that nothing is more representative of that if you've ever been on a Japanese website. That stuff was built, those are built on DOS, and half of them have not been updated. That's also why like a big kind of cultural, particularly kind of in business culture there, a sign of status is your pen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I went into one of like the kind of the big high brand stationery stores when I was there, and like they'd be selling pens for the better part of like what would be 600 quid, like 600 euro. Like that's like you can't judge a man by how fancy his pen is.
You also have to bring your own tea, because I've known people who've been to Japanese business meetings and you just get served hot water and then everyone has like their own tea that they like in there.
I live in the wrong country because I do that and I get black for it.
So I got news. This is news, isn't it? Because obviously Persona 5 has been my life. Now, two things. Number one is, you know, there's a lot of talk about Persona 6, as I'm sure there always has been with any time there's any game like this. It's like, when's the next game? But also like I'd love to just hear like because obviously I only played Persona 5 Royale, which is one of those things, because Atlas is known for, like, they did the same thing with Catherine, another game of theirs. They were like had the normal version of that and then released
that
Catherine
game was
full
really
body.
Good,
no, they've been doing that for decades now, where they'll do like it's like just too much of an of a whole ingrained shift to be like DLC. And like not enough to be like a full kind of sequel. Yeah,
and then it was like at times it was like really obvious, like, oh, this is the extra bit. This is the Persona 5 bit. And I think because I knew that as well, I had a lot of fun, like, trying to pick it out. But in general, like, I heard there was a lot of ease of life differences between the first version or like Royale. So would you say like I did the right thing just going straight to Royale, or do you think no, you got to play 5?
No, absolutely. I played all the 5 when that came out and then played Royale because like you now know the hunger. You mentioned before we started recording you want to go back to it.
The hunger.
You've got the hunger. The hunger, the need to do it all again. So yeah, no, like if you are intrigued at all,
I want to play this thing.
Play Royal. It is the better way of playing it because it has more, which is great when you're looking at over 100 hours a game, and just quality of life changes. Like the big one I found is Saoire, remember the gun mechanic?
Yeah, I heard about this, and it was only meant when you went into a palace, which is basically a dungeon for RPG language. But so it didn't restock, but that was wasn't it?
It didn't restock until like you hit checkpoint rooms and like safe rooms, where in Royal it rechecks every battle, and it's like, oh no, this is now way more functional and just better to use. So yeah, no, it is a fundamentally just better thing to do. And I know probably recommending you a game just after you got out of this might not be ideal, but I think it might be I think actually it was about a year ago. They did port Persona 4 Golden, which is like the Royal version of Persona 4, to Steam. And that is like truly on par with 5.
Now I'm kind of like, it's the golden version on par with 5 because like I'm kind of a bit like RPG'd out of it. Like I do want to play it, so I'm kind of unsure about playing another Persona game because usually I don't like to backtrack on games. So like Uncharted, it's like one of my favorite game series, and I'm started with the first one, and I'm glad I started with the first one. And usually I think it's because because I finished Ni no Kuni recently enough, and I finished no, I didn't finish. I was like, I'm halfway through Dragon Quest, and like Kian, we played through Final Fantasy, and I didn't think
that
I
was
would
a tough one to break into. Yeah.
I think I did Final Fantasy right. My order I played 6 first. And then I did 10, 10, 13, 7. And 6 is the only one I finished. And I started 8 and I started 9. But
that's right, actually, not to go to like kind of our kind of private lives and stuff, but like I think you had me over to like just do the last leg of the boss in Final Fantasy 6, like the Kefka
I
bit.
needed your Final Fantasy knowledge.
Yeah,
I didn't even know you could use magic. Keen was like, who do you have
to be
equipped?
honest, it's even
and I'm like,
more
no
impressive that you made it that far.
He was like, how did you get this far without using magic? I'm like, they don't explain it. But I was saying is like Persona 5 is an RPG that I liked because I quite like I find the kind of standard Final Fantasy, it's this person's turn, kind of a bit grindy. And what I liked about Persona 5 is it never felt grindy. So I would say if there's people out there that want to play an RPG but have been kind of put off by, it's definitely the best RPG I've played. Sorry, Kian.
No, not at all. Actually, I'm the
Fantasies.
opposite. Because like in my real life, I'm doing driving lessons at the moment, and like I'm like in that mode of a car is coming. I am going to wait patiently for it to drive by me, and like the instructors are like drive around, and it's like no.
Yeah,
and I'm the same with video games. I don't like things coming at me from all angles. I like to do my turn and wait, But actually, what I wanted to ask Saoirse is, you've just done a game like which ate your life for a while. For me, I think the last one was like Fire Emblem Three Houses or whatever. Are you feeling the come down of not having it be a huge part of your life now that it's gone?
Yes and no. One being like I really needed my life back. I am a 27-year-old woman. I cannot be staying up till 3 a.m. playing video games every night. I
am
have
taking
stuff
that
to do.
very personally as a criticism.
I mean, I do. I just, it's not sustainable. And it's a 125-hour game, so I think you do feel quite complete. But then I did immediately restart it, so I'm back.
Yes.
So like we're just in like an addict circle right now. That's
well, I actually got it because I heard a lot of stuff about it, and then I saw Persona 5 Strikers was on sale actually on the Switch, and I was like, well,
wait, Persona 5 is on the Switch?
No.
Side game.
So it's a side game, and I looked it up because I was like, well, I don't. At the time, I didn't have a PlayStation 4. I had a PlayStation 4. It's still not mine, but it appeared in the house, and
it just appeared.
It actually did. It just appeared. No, it's my housemate's. But one day I was just in the sitting room and I was like, why is there a PlayStation 4 here? Right. So it's become my PlayStation 4. So I knew I wasn't getting one for a while, and I looked it up and it's like, do you have to play Persona 5 to play Strikers? And most people were saying like it is a direct sequel and you should just play Persona 5 anyway. And I bought the Persona 5 Strikers because I wanted the style because it's not an RPG like Persona 5. But it's weird that that's on the Switch, but Persona 5 isn't. And there's a lot of talk.
Catherine's up there as well.
Catherine's up there. I think if Catherine sells well, they'll bring Persona 6 or even Persona 4 3. So I think 5 is a special lock.
It's a funny thing. Atlas, who are like the publisher, just seem to be kind of like Atlas had been predominantly like they're like a Sony, like a second party Sony publisher for years. Not officially, but like always, like everything they made was always kind of going on PlayStations. So they've been towing their water, like just kind of dipping their toes in the water of like other things. As I said, ported For Golden, which was a PlayStation Vita game, onto the PC, which I think was mostly a move to be like, hey, here's a super popular game people love. Let's get it on a console people have. And like that's the thing. So like 5 Strikers was on the Switch. They've actually just announced that one of the fighting game spin-offs for 4 is coming to the Switch. Catherine was now on the Switch. And
I played Catherine on the Switch.
Yeah. And Shin Megami
what did you think of it, by the way?
Very different to Persona. So people are I enjoyed it. I think it's fun replay value. It's one of those ones that you'd feel a bit weird if someone walked in on you playing it. So
it's the reason I haven't downloaded it. It's a not safe for prim game.
No. But what actually jumped out of me cracks is the fact that it's really hard. That's
like all the puzzles going up, like
it is terribly difficult.
It's mainly an interactive movie, is what I would say. Whereas like Persona is kind of like a full-time job.
No, you're probably right. A full-time job with the best damn soundtrack you've ever heard.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is it's just the style of it is so good as well, just in terms of like what I appreciate about it is that it's fast. Like, so I've been trying to think of like a second, like I'm kind of on the fence about getting Red Dead Redemption 2. Like I'll play it eventually because I played the first one and everyone's like, oh my God, it's amazing. But a lot of people say like, I really like it because it really takes its time. That lets you really feel like a cowboy. And I'm like, riding a horse is real boring. Like, I don't want to be waiting. Like, so it's like, and that's one thing that
you just finished a game where you commute.
No, but it's so fast. So like even Final Fantasy or every other RPG, you have to walk. So
never play Final Fantasy 15. There are like 10-15 minute stretches where you're sitting in a car while someone else drives you. It's great.
So Persona 5 is like, you for some strange reason have to navigate like how to cross, like how to transfer trains in Tokyo at the start. But that mechanic is never used for the rest of the game. You just fast travel everywhere. The natural speed your character walks is like a sprint in most games. And you can still hold down R2 and move at unbelievably fast paces. And if that's not fast enough for you, you can hide and press X to hide somewhere else. And you just like, so it's like a really like adrenaline fueled tiny woman. I just appreciated being able to go like,
you've got your bio there for your next podcast.
Boom. Yeah.
No, like it's you're completely onto it. As like oxymoronic as like it is to say that a 100-hour game is like very quick paced. Persona 5 takes all the kind of the hallmarks of your Final Fantasy and just trims every inch of fat down to the bone on it. To the point like where it has like turn-based battles, but the mechanics, there's like kind of a jump mechanic where like you hit like somebody with an elemental weakness, you get another turn, and you can just chain these.
Like giving people high fives. It's very sweet.
Yeah, where like you could have like 10 turns in a round and the enemy hasn't done anything, but you've done so much, and then you win and you're on straight on to the next. It's so like the pace is so quick, and then combining that with just the best UI in a video game I think I've ever seen. Like even the menus are kind of fun and quick and snappy to navigate.
Yeah, it's very fast, and I like that, because that's always, I think if it was like 125 hours and like 50 of those hours was me getting to point A to point B, which is the majority of RPGs, I'd be a lot more annoyed.
Yeah, 50 hours get transporting around, another 50 hours in menus sorting out gear.
I mean, you always unlock fast travel eventually, but that's only from like town to town, where Persona is just like, here's the place you have to be now.
Here's the place you have to be now. You've got exams on Saturday. Go study.
Oh yeah, then every now and again you'll just have you'll just be doing exams, and I'd be like, why is this so stressful? Or even like the funniest thing is like to build social so it's kind of like, for those of you wondering about the game, is it's very much, you know, you have your dungeon bits, which are like your fighty bits, and then you kind of have your free time that you can kind of do what you like with, and you can like eventually like buy like an old games console, and you're there playing a video game of you playing a video game where you had to mash X enough times, and I'm there trying to win a video game in the video game, and I'm like, what is wrong with me?
No, nothing's wrong with you. You're just trying to impress the cat who was sitting next to you, judging you.
Yeah, that's another thing. From the very beginning, there's a talking cat. So as a cat lady, I did enjoy that it included a cat.
Yes. Do you want to tell the listeners at home what cats you have in your family?
And my children.
Yes.
Yes. No. I have Troy and Abed. They are massive Maine Coons. Troy is 10 kilos. Abed is 8 kilos.
A+ names.
Yeah.
Gold star.
They're suited towards their personalities as well. Although they both will drink out of the toilet if we leave the seat up. So
I remember going over to your house with a laser pointer and they were able to follow it up most of the wall. They are massive cats. Like, it's absurd. Like, I don't know how you sleep in your own bed with those two.
Amazingly. Like Troy's like they snuggle up under the covers. So like I'll have one where I'm literally spooning one cat under the covers, and then the other cat is like tucked in to that little bit behind my knees.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, there's no space for anyone else in the bed. So
like there's a lot
of probably why I'm single.
Like there's enough to be said about like a cat-based emotional support system. I think you've got a cat-based physical support system.
It was really good for lockdown because it was just like all my cuddles were just cats. And now I don't know how to hug or pet normal people. See, you don't even pet people.
Laser pointer.
Laser
like, use that. That's how you hug people, right?
Hey, listen, again, we've all dissociated for the past 2 years. I think you throw a laser pointer in front of any of us, we're gonna have a ball. There's no.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, isn't that like most rave gigs? Just someone there with a laser pointer. I don't know. I don't know what clubs are.
We are basically cats at this point. I do want to actually not to go too far down the kind of the cat rabbit hole, but Kev mentioned he finished playing one of my favorite games recently. So I want to talk about Ace Attorney. I'm sorry, only for the benefit of the people on this, I have finally managed to find a photo of Saoirse's cat.
Holy, whoa, that's a big
being
cat.
held by my ex-boyfriend, who is 6 foot, he's not dead. We ended on good terms. 6'2" for reference, so he's a very large man.
And there's two of those.
Cat. So if you see the cat with me, you're like, well, is she just really small or is the cat really big? I don't know. It's like
is she like are the cats a house pet or are they mounts? Do you role play He-Man scenes with these cats?
Well, one of them is like doesn't really mind being dressed up, and my housemate will come home drunk and just start putting hats and stuff on him.
How wonderfully wholesome.
I have a little cat tie, so when I'm sad I just put the tie on him and it just cheers me up. Just have a cat walking around the house with a tie. Tell you, life hack.
Annie would not enjoy this. She'd be like, what are you doing? I did not agree to this.
All right, well, I'm sure cats will find their way back into it, but I'm still quite keen for Kev to talk about Ace Attorney, which I've got my own anecdote about it, but I'll let Kev go first. So you've only just gotten into it, have you?
That's the thing. I only started it recently after much fanfare from pretty much everyone I know saying it's great, and me fully believing them. This is just me knowing I'm late to the party. But yeah, like I'm only on like the third case in the first game, but it is a blast. It is just it's like we've had the talk about visual novels on the show a couple of times, and just how like some people here aren't a fan of the lack of interactivity, kind of intrinsic to the visual novel format. But I like it's just the writing is so snappy. The little animatics of the characters are just kind of so fun and witty, and then the writing and the kind of the whole case mechanics really super fun. I don't know how much I can really say about it again, having only played like 2.5 cases.
Well, I've played like all the games, so you've basically hit a nail on the head there. It's just in case there's someone listening at home who isn't aware of what this is, the Ace Attorney series. So there you go,
Saoirse. Or someone right here. So explain the series and which one as a newcomer I should play first.
It's easy enough. The first one is just called Ace Attorney. And actually, since I believe you do have a Switch, as I've discovered, there's a very handy like gift set you can get on Nintendo Switch, which includes the first 3 original games. I think you can get just the first 3 games for 20 quid or something like that. It's fairly cheap.
And it probably wouldn't take up that much space.
Exactly. Or you can get them lumped in with the newer games from the 3DS, which I didn't know this. I bought the whole package together just to get the one new game. They give you the other game free, which is set in feudal Japan / Victorian England or something like that. So the Ace Attorney series is an absolute blast. It's been my favorite, apart from maybe Final Fantasy, for like the past decade. And like Kev was saying, it's just a really fun novel where you just are solving these cases and defending your client in a courtroom, and it's really funny. And because you say attorney and it sounds like very dour and drab, but it's really bright and colorful and great fun. Like, I'd recommend it to anyone. Like,
now I'm just picturing in my head Professor Layton.
Yes, actually, Professor Layton and Phoenix Wright have shared a game together.
Phoenix Wright's the dude's name.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
It is funny. Up until very recently, only kind of getting it through cultural osmosis. One of my friends, Eric, who is on my D&D podcast, which I plug at the end of every show, is a huge Ace Attorney fan. Even like cosplaying him on TikTok. And he would have led me to believe that Ace Attorney is solely about a trans man with curtains and a very red velvet coat who is just constantly at odds with his boyfriend. And that's not fully far off what I think the games are.
The funny thing is, I couldn't necessarily narrow down which characters you're talking about, which speaks to the quality of the series. But yes, Miles Edgeworth and Phoenix Wright. Miles Edgeworth being the prosecutor. You in the game are Phoenix Wright, the defense attorney. You have an assistant who is a spirit channeler, so that you can summon up the dead if you need it.
Just like real life.
Yeah, of course.
Like a normal courtroom, yeah.
So,
yeah.
So if I was like to you, right, Keen, I'm only going to play one Ace Attorney game. You have one chance to woo me. Like, what is the Persona 5 of Ace Attorney?
That's a good question.
In regards, like, if I only could play one, which one would you say?
I would still do the first one. I'd still do the original trilogy, because the further in you go, they're just like adding all these.
And that was on Game Boy, was it?
What?
Was that on Game Boy originally, the first one?
Nintendo DS. It was one of the first games rolled out to really utilize the touch screen and the fact that you could shout objection into the microphone. That isn't. It's still got that feel to it.
Reminds me of WarioWare. Actually, this is pretty like not very COVID safe, because WarioWare was like my first DS game, so I loved it so much.
Yeah.
That's why I've been like stopping myself from buying the new Switch one. I will eventually, but WarioWare, there was loads that incorporated like blowing on the DS, and I had another game that used that a lot, and it's just like so gross when you think about it. Just like 8-year-old kid just.
Hey, listen! Don't like share your DS around.
I didn't.
That's your spit machine.
No, I didn't. I was such a like. What's the word? I was such a like scabby kid. Like I wouldn't let anyone touch my DS because I was like afraid of everyone breaking it or everyone getting their muddy kid fingers on it.
Easily, didn't they? The like not necessarily the whole screen, but the separating bit could crack fairly easily.
No, mine was perfect. I kept mine in pristine condition.
You just like hid in the corner away from everyone else. Didn't let anyone near it.
Talking as if I need to hide for people to stay away from. Imagine when cloning gets real big and you can just cloning random people from Nintendo cartridges, and you could take bets onto like what type of person it would be. Or is that just a kind of
God, just off Pokemon Red, Blue and Yellow alone, you could redo the entire population of the 1990s.
Absolutely. You have a pretty good one. Well, I'm just going to call it what it is. The lazy design of Pokemon after a certain while, because it starts off like, yeah, okay, fair enough, a rat and a bat. Okay, I can go along with that. And then it's just like, they redid Pikachu again, but with a different ear. And you're like, yeah, they really stopped start giving the effort there. Like,
I mean, it works. I just remember being blown away because I was really big into Yellow and I didn't play any Pokemon. And then I went straight from Yellow to X, and I was like, what is happening? This is amazing. But like my nephew is like 8 years old, and he's just as into Pokemon as I was when I was a kid. Because they know what they're doing. It's that gotta collect them all mentality. Like it sucks, but Pokemon's always gonna sell, so there's not that much need for invention. And like, you know, my nephew reads the Pokemon dictionary. Like he's buying Pokemon cards. Although I am very curious as to what Arceus is going to be like.
I hear it's supposed to be like the Breath of the Wild of the series.
See, yeah, you can't be talking about Pokemon games like that, because people were thinking similar things when like the Sword and Shield came out. So
I like the Sword and Shield. I don't know why everyone's...
Plus, Breath of the Wild is become the new like Dark Souls of this is the Breath of the Wild of X genre.
Well, you see, Kev, the thing about it is, I'm just like, when is the next Dreamcast coming out?
You're going to keep asking that.
I'm going to keep asking it. And the reason why is, or when Sega going to take over Nintendo again? Dara,
they answered that question about 10 years ago. It's called the Vita and it didn't sell either.
Hold on, the Vita's amazing. What are we talking about? You mod that thing and it's a great time.
Let me just look at my Wii U. No, I never had a Wii U. I never had a Wii U.
Did anyone have the Wii U? Did literally anyone have the Wii U?
The only people that do have Wii U's are really annoyed because they just took the best games and ported them to the Switch as new games.
Oh man. You know, that's the final nail in the coffin of that console. Honestly, full disclosure, folks, that's why I refuse to get the Switch, because I'm like, no, Sega will win eventually. That's the hill I'm going to die
belligerents.
On.
You're just
like Bart Simpson waiting for Krusty to arrive in Camp
Exactly.
Krusty.
It's like have you heard about the Sonic statue? You'd be into the Sonic statue.
My daughter has recruited me to Sonic. She got big into Sonic Boom and Sonic X on Netflix. And then I downloaded the games. Like, there's two really good ones on the Switch, Sonic Forces and like, I'll get the name of it now, like Sonic Generations.
Oh, yeah, Generations.
Generations.
You were talking about the other day. Yeah.
Maybe not Generations. It's the one that like looks 2D pixely, but they've completely remastered
Mania.
it.
Sure, they're bringing... They have the
Mania.
Sega Genesis games out now on the Nintendo Switch Plus account.
Oh, they put those Genesis games out on anything they can.
Yeah.
No Dreamcast games, though.
No, Sonic is making a big time comeback, because I accidentally got around to watching the movie the other day, and it's great.
Isn't it?
I had the best experience of my life watching the Sonic movie, because it was that weird period at the start of lockdown when the schools had closed but nothing really happened, and me and my friend realized the cinema is going to be empty.
Yep.
So we just went and saw the Sonic movie, the only people there, drinking cans at the back, and just yelling things at the screen. And then whenever one of us would we were sitting at the very back, and because we were drinking, you know, obviously we'd need to go to the bathroom. When someone would come up, when someone would leave the bathroom, when my friend would come back or I would come in and be like, "What I miss? Nothing. They're just doing this," like just screaming over the cinema. So I enjoyed it. For that.
Is there anything? I love Sonic. I've seen that movie 4 times. Is there anything you could miss in that movie? They literally just go from one town to San Francisco, and have a fight. It's all fun, but plot-wise, it's fairly on the basic side, you know.
There's some character development.
Like you just missed Jim Carrey hamming
less complicated movies are fine by me.
Jim Carrey's song made no sense because no other character sang a song, and he just had this weird villain song.
And it was excellent.
Out of nowhere.
It was great. He had a dance routine in a truck. It was awesome.
Here's the thing that kind of non sequitur a little bit, but it just kind of fit in, I suppose. So do you know when you're watching a musical, right, and you're like, that song isn't happening in the text. It's happening metaphorically almost.
It's non-diegetic.
Yeah, it's not diegetic, exactly. And it's just like, maybe that's what they were doing here, but nobody told Jim Carrey. It's like, there's no song here. He goes, no, I need to express how I'm feeling.
No, I fully believe that was diegetic. I need to enrich my soul that Eggman is a musical theater kid.
Hold on, we do not call him Eggman here, Kev. It's Dr. Robotnik. That is the man's name.
You're fair. No, you're right. You're right.
Like, I was really ready to hate this film, but like,
why?
I
love everything, even when it's terrible.
The Paradise trailer, and I didn't mind the Sonic original design. but it just looked like it was like bargain bin Batman Forever and like with a kids movie kind of thing. But then
Yeah,
when I
that's
got
fair.
into it, like Jim Carrey, like James Marsden he gives a great performance. You do not know he is acting opposite nothing. You buy that chemistry with that hedgehog.
You do.
And like Jim Carrey, he's got so many wonderful, I'm assuming, improvised lines. Like he's in the middle of like the big epic confrontation. They make a speech about friendship, and he's like, "Oh, friends, I hate friends." Because then you become, like, get to know people, and then you're best man for a wedding outside of town, like you've got nothing to do, and you're like, the film's nearly over. Stay on topic. Like, it's just great,
Never.
Sequel.
Absolutely never.
Sequel.
I'm so excited that Knuckles is in the sequel, gang.
Oh, there's nothing like they have my money. They cast Idris Elba as Knuckles. I'm going to see that movie.
I mean,
This
nothing.
isn't a question.
If we're talking about obscure casting, obviously, like weird casting, we have to talk about the Super Mario movie.
No, we
Charlie
don't.
Day is
Yes.
Luigi. I'm
No, we
just
don't.
obsessed with Charlie Day and Luigi. I'm a big Luigi fangirl, is what I'm saying.
That is
I can see it
perfect
happening.
casting.
I
Yeah.
can see it happening.
I'm always Luigi in Mario Kart. I'm a big underdog supporter, just in spite.
Yes, actually, Saoirse, do you want to tell us about your lockdown Mario Kart tournament you hosted?
Yeah, I found a lot of solace playing Mario Kart at the start of lockdown. Trying to think what I can. So play a lot of Mario Kart, and then I thought, you know what? Everyone's feeling miserable. I'm gonna set up a Mario Kart tournament, which Keen was a part of. And my housemate was like, "Are you gonna have a wheel that you spin?" And I'm like, "If you make me a wheel, I'll use the wheel." And he's there with like got a rusty old bicycle like wheel. So it was nice, just